Welcome to my training session about the art of defense. Everyone likes to attack and everyone likes it to put the opponent under pressure. But when we ourselves are the target of the opponent's attacks, we feel uncomfortable, we feel timid and more unconfident. Yet, it is in defense that we can save an incredible number of points. A bad position is far from being a lost position. And a lost position does not mean that our opponent will win it. Often we can develop unexpected resistance in many different ways. Many players, when faced with a worse position, with seemingly unsolvable problems, feel frustrated and they quickly collapse. But a handful of players, even in really bad position, put an amazing resistance. They have the skill to stay in the game as long as possible and to fight as hard as possible. As an international master, a long-term chess trainer and coach, and a certified mental trainer, I would like to share my experience and my knowledge with you in order to strengthen your resilience, show you the beautiful side of defense, and thus help you to save as many points as possible. I found Ding's game in round 7 in the 2023 World Championship very inspiring, and I would like to share this game with you and to address 12 points that we'll cover in more detail later. I call this game Ding's unfinished masterpiece of defense. And we will start in move 12 after bishop to b7, and Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces plays bishop to d3. Now, he lays the card on the table, and it's clear he wants to attack the king side, the black king, and the bishop eyes the square h7, and the white queen will come as soon as possible. And Ding plays queen to c7. Now, in this world champion game, we will see numerous defenses ideas, which I will discuss later in detail, namely, to recognize the threats of your opponent, to have enough defender to eliminate the attackers, a defensive quality sacrifice, to ignore the opponent's threat and set up an even higher threat, the method of elimination and the method of comparison, to have a sense of danger. In some position, you have to find the only playable move. Sometimes it is very useful to set up some traps. It is very important to work on your resilience. And last but not least, we have to talk a little about time management. Now, after queen c7, white queen goes to e4 and is threatening checkmate. Black could have answered with g6, this is okay, but he prefers the move knight to f6. He defends the h7 square, the h7 square, attacks the queen, and it is one more defender for the king. Now the queen goes, and this is quite normal in this position, to h4, also eyeing the square h7, and black answers with c5. The bishop on b7 has now this wonderful long diagonal. Bishop to f4 with attacking the queen, and the queen goes to b6. And after knight to e5, we have the first critical moment. And it's a very dangerous one. Ding senses the danger and dived deep into the position. Finally, he responds with the strongest defensive move. In doing so, after work out the threats, he used the method of elimination and, on the other side, the method of comparison. Now, which possibilities does black have? We have 4 moves, I suppose. Pawn to h6, pawn to g6, or rook f to d8, or rook a to d8. It is clear white has 2 important threats. One threat is that the bishop takes on h7, because when the knight takes the bishop, then we can catch this one on e7. And the even more dangerous threat is knight jumps to d7 in order to deflect the knight from f6, and so we can checkmate on h7. And this is a very important threat. Now, let's try to find out if we can eliminate some of black's move. One is pawn to h6. Here you have to feel the danger of the sacrifice on h6, and indeed bishop can take, and if you take the bishop then queen takes, and now one of the white rooks will come to e1, e3, g3 and checkmate the black king. So another possibility will be g6, but this feels also very scaring, because now white has the move bishop to g5. So we have 2 possibilities, rook f to d8 or rook a to d8, and we have to decide. Rook f to d8 has one big problem, and this is f7. If white has a knight on e5, we have to be very, very careful when we play this rook to d8. Because now white can take indeed on h7, the knight takes back, we take the bishop, and now f6 would have been a very nice move when we have this rook on f8. But now the queen and the knight checkmates the black king. So the correct move, and Ding play this move, is rook a to d8. Now it's not such a good idea to take the pawn on h7, because after knight takes, queen takes, and now we have this very nice move f6 with attacking the knight, and the queen is also in danger. When the knight jumps back, let's say to f3, then we can play rook to f7 and we will win the white queen. A better move for white is here rook a to d1. And now we cannot take the knight, because if we take the knight, then we have bishop takes with the threat of checkmate on g7, knight f6, rook takes on d8, queen cannot take back because the bishop on b7 will be unprotected, so the black rook has to take, and now we have this very nice double attack with bishop to c7 and white will win. So after bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, f6 and rook d1, black is forced to play rook to e8, and it will be a draw because both sides cannot escape to repeat the moves. Okay, but this is not the idea from white's point of view. So Nepomniachtchi plays in this position, and he plays it very fast, rook a to e1. He holds the position and gives black even more to think about. An excellent and quickly played practical decision. And the pressure remains on Ding, and he needs to think even more. And he answers now with pawn to g6. A very concrete, calculated move, because the consequences of bishop to g5 have to be considered. And Nepo plays this move, but now black has a very important defense. The knight is in danger, but black has a counter-attack. He plays rook to d4, attacks the queen, and the queen goes to h3. And now Ding finds another very important defensive move. He plays queen to c7. The queen protects the bishop, so now black has the idea to play the knight to h5 in order to exchange this very, very nice piece. b3. Yeah, b3 is a very good prophylactic move, because another idea of queen to c7 was pawn to c4 and attack this bishop. So b3, good idea, and now the knight jumps to h5. Pawn to f4, good move, because after changing the bishops on e7, then black's pieces are very, very well placed, and black can slowly but surely consider to activate all his pieces and has a very nice position. So pawn to f4 and bishop to d6. This prepares an excellent positional exchange sacrifice. Pawn to c3 attacks the rook, and now the rook is trapped, but Ding had prepared the follow-up. He takes on f4, bishop takes, rook takes, and bishop takes on e5. Now, for the rook, black has a bishop plus one pawn plus the excellent pair of bishops. And the bishop on b7 is a very nice piece, but this bishop on e5, this is very, very well placed. It attacks the white king side, the white queen side, and most of all, it defends wonderfully the black's king. And we will see this is really important, because now the white rook goes to h4. And again, Ding find a very active defensive move. Okay, white threatens to take the pawn on h7, but it's not necessary to protect it, or even not necessary to play pawn to h5, but rook to d8 is a very nice move and also some kind of a trap. Now white cannot take on h7. If he takes the pawn, then we have this nice move, rook takes on d3. There is no mating idea. The black bishop defends excellently. We attacks the queen, and if the queen takes the rook, then we can take on h7. And now we have these two wonderful bishops against the rook, and black will win this game. So, Nepo plays bishop to e4, bishop takes, rook to d5, rook h4, and once again, it is not necessary for black to protect the pawn on h5. Black plays queen to d6 and centralized the queen and has this very nice counter-attack, rook to d1, and then the white king is in great danger. So once again, white cannot take on h7 because of rook to d1. The king will have no defender after this exchange, and white has no other idea than to take. We take back with check, king f2, check again, and we will take on c3. And again, the bishop protects the square h8, and we are threatening checkmate. Black will win. So, therefore, queen to e3, and now simply pawn to h5, and black gets very active. Look at these very nice pieces in the center. Pawn to g3, okay, white wants to activate this rook on h4, which is now a little bit misplaced. Bishop to f6. And up to here, Ding has played a great game in my view. He has defended prudently and actively, and also the ancients give us 0-0-0 in this position. From a practical point of view, it is now easier to play with black. But there is one problem. Ding has already spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of nerves. Rook to c4, and pawn to h4. And this is the moment where everything changes. This move is not bad, but impractical. With only 5 minutes left on the clock and no bonus time per move, black should have remained stable and not changed the character of the position. So instead of h4, let's say king g7 is a nice move, or even bishop g5 is okay. h4, not bad, but now Nepo quickly took the pawn on h4. Black is still in a good position, but it was obvious now that Ding has missed this capture on h4, and he froze. Rosen called such moments neuronal kidnapping in his book The 7 Deadly Sins of a Chess Player. The pressure on the player becomes overwhelming. First, his nerves collapses, then his position. Also, nothing has happened yet. Under the enormous stress of the competition, Ding's brain was completely flooded with emotions. He was no longer able to think clearly. Neuronal kidnapping is particularly common in important games, where the nerve systems is already stressed by external factors. In Ding's case, it was the stress of the competition. It was to think on the title, to get the world title. On top of that, he has already lost 2 black games in this competition. And he started thinking about it during the game. This made him lose the focus, make him lose the confidence and his concentration. So he needed more time to find good moves. And finally, when the time was running out, he collapses. When your brain is flooded with emotions, it is already too late. This phenomenon is common in many sports. In darts, for example, the dreaded dartitis is a condition in which the player is no longer able to release the dart at the desired moment. And when he throws the dart, it lands far from the target, like the moves of Ding that he made after freezing. These problems cannot be solved by more sport-specific technique, but only by mental training. How to deal with the pressure, how to deal with situations where something unexpected happens. Now, Ding plays rook to d2. Black had many equal moves on the board. This move is also playable, but it goes in the wrong direction. And it's typical for a player in panic. He sets up a concrete threat just to relieve the tension. Maybe an even better idea would have been king to g7 again, or bishop to e5. Nice centralization. So, but rook to d2, rook to e2, and rook goes back on d3, a tempo played, which was necessary with only a few seconds on the clock. But it was no longer about chess, and it has nothing to do with Ding's chess quality. The bad time management is just a symptom of Ding's bad mental condition in that game. Now white can take on c5, rook d1, king g2, queen d3, rook to f2, and everything is protected now. White king is safe and white attacks on the f-file. King g7, white can double the rook on the f-file, and Ding plays queen to c3 and resigned, because white can take, and after queen f7, the game is over.